worms. You can buy 1 pound of worms for $23. Okay. You can sell 1 pound of worms for $23. Okay. Worms, the population of worms multiplies every 60 days by 2. So if you take some worms, put them in the ground, 60 days later, you'll have twice as many. Okay. So, it's pretty good investment. You buy 10 pounds of worms, you put them all in the ground, 60 days you have 20 pounds of worms. You can sell that and make $230 profit. Worms are crazy. So, but there's a problem with this straight up. Like, you can't just put worms in the ground because of birds. Okay. Birds eat 4 worms a day. The birds per neighborhood, BPN, is about 60. So you have 60 BPN, and each worm, or each bird, eats 4 worms. That's over 200 worms a day eaten. Okay. That's over 1,000 worm deaths a week. So, what you want to do is you want to lace your worms with bird repellent. No, you want to get buckets. You want to get a bucket. You want to put your worms in the bucket with the lid, so birds won't get them. So then what you do? You get 20 pounds of dirt and a 5-gallon bucket. So 20 pounds of dirt, 10 pounds of worms. Okay. And then what you do is you want to mingle for 60 days, and you got 20 pounds of worms in a bucket, right? So what you do is you take those 10 pounds of worms from the bucket and you sell them, and you make $230. And then you take that money and you buy more buckets. You buy 7 more buckets with that money. So now you have 8 buckets. So then what you do is you wait another 60 days. You put the dirt in the bucket and you put the worms in the bucket, the new bucket. And then now you have 2 buckets of worms. and then what you do is you just let it sit for another 60 days. And then you got 4 buckets of worms, right? So you got 4 buckets of worms. 60 days, you got 8 buckets of worms. So you got like half a year or something at this point. But that's fine, because it's really about to shoot off. So you got 8 buckets of worms. What you do is 60 days go by, you have 80 pounds of worms that I don't know what to do with. You sell those worms, and you make, I have it in my notes. You make $1,840 from selling those worms. And then what you do is you buy 61 more buckets. Okay, so you got 61 buckets now, along with your 8, so 69 buckets. And this is where you really start to build your worm empire. 60 days go by, you got 16 buckets. 60 days, 32 buckets. And you keep putting the worms in the buckets, worms in buckets, dirt in buckets, worms in buckets. And then it gets to a point where you keep doing the cycle. Once you fill up on buckets, you use the rest of the worms to buy more buckets. It's good. You make a lot of money. And then then what you do is you keep doing this for 2 years, right? Once you hit 2 years, you will be making more money than a college student that goes to school for 4 years. That just puts it in perspective. While these kids are out partying and drinking, you're selling worms. Who's the real winner? Okay. So fast forward 2 more years of buying buckets, putting the worms in the buckets. Then what you do? You will be making over $3 million a year off of worms and buckets. Because, I mean, you got so many buckets at this point of worms. So what you do is the worms, they mingle in the buckets, and you got, after 60 days, your population has doubled. You scoop half the population off in each bucket. You sell it. You sell it for money. And you do that 6 times a year, because there are 6, yeah. And then, in total, you're gonna make $3 million a year. After 4 years of college, a kid would only make a fraction of that. It's the meta. Another plus is $3 million worth of worms is a lot of worms.